endorsed by the owners, managers, or advertisers of the station. While we encourage all to share their opinions, we do not support any comments that may slander, discriminate, or otherwise offend anyone, and we insist that you refrain from any such statements.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear No Favor. Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war. Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSaintKitts.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM. Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear No Favor. Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war. Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSaintKitts.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Good evening, welcome to Fear No Favor, and tonight we may have a special guest, more like a reunion of two brothers, and you hearing it clearly? And we are going to be addressing a few issues. I have with me Shahid Williams of St. Paul's fame, Sandy Point High School, stardom, and tonight we're going to have quite a discussion. I must apologize for the late start. What happened is that St. Kitts is small, and people like to say that people know everywhere, but that was not the case this evening. Shahid was supposed to meet me here at Sugar City, but somehow he has never been here before. So I had to go and actually held his hand and brought him up into Greenlands and then brought him to the radio station. So we cannot assume St. Kitts is small. At some time, it can be big, too big for some people to know where things are. Shahid, welcome to Fear No Favor at Sugar City.
Yes, Mr. Nital, I am more than welcome to be here at Sugar City. This is my first time, but I'm gonna make it a very comfortable time because I don't feel comfortable already.
We're always comfortable in each other's company. Tonight we want to look. You see, sometimes when society is experiencing certain action and activities, persons tend to have a sort of mood, the mood of the land. The mood of the land is to get down on those persons who are perceived or who might have proven to be doing things along the broad path. And as such, people become emotional. And in so doing, we tend to forget those who are still incarcerated but would have gone through tremendous metamorphosis, tremendous rehabilitation. And as such, when you paint everybody with a broad brush, you tend to surgically discriminate against those who would have gone through genuine rehabilitation. Now they have the Prison Act that those guys are governed by. As a matter of fact, I made a promise to those guys who are working at the camp, the inmates who are working at the camp, Tulu, Hard Knock, and those guys who really did some work on my vehicle recently. I had a discussion with them and they asked me what I thought about certain section of the Prison Act. And I told them we had a discussion. And we just want to bring it to light that there are certain things that should be happening according to the Prison Act so that some inmates may be released before the stipulated time because there are laws governing it. For example, persons must be taken for judicial review, especially those who serve in long sentences. They must be taken for judicial review every 4 years. But for some time, that was very dormant. It was not happening. For a lot of years, it was not happening. And I think in recent times, a more concerted effort is being made to ensure that that aspect of the Prison Act is put into place. But there are more than just that. And we are going to take a break and come back, and we are going to look at those sections.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear No Favor. Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSankits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM. Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear No Favor. Where is the cancer man? No runner come out for war. Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to SugarCityFMSankits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM.
Would you stand up and see your country dying and never lend a helping hand? Would you see your children's future dwindling, creating much disillusion? Or watch on idly, disregarding our self-sufficiency and administration.
Welcome back. We are going to look at a section of the Prison Act that speaks to particular attention that must be paid to inmates who are serving long sentences. I will let Shahid read and tell us about that, and then we'll get into a little discussion.
Okay, a pleasant good evening to one and all. As I'm reading, it says, reports on long sentence prisoners. The superintendent of prisons shall bring to the notice of the minister all long sentence convicts, both men and women, at the end of the fourth year of imprisonment and every fourth year thereafter, describing the prisoner's mental and bodily condition with particular reference to the effect of imprisonment upon his or her health, his or her demeanor, and his or her attitude towards the offense and towards crime generally, and upon his or her conduct and industry, and on any other points which might be of assistance to the minister in considering his or her case.
Your understanding of that?
Well, my understanding is that upon uh, a prisoner serving a long-term imprisonment, might be termed as maybe from long-term, well, we in St. Kitts, we might classify long-term to be anything 10 years and beyond, because from the you're going to spend 10 years in imprisonment, that's going to be like it must take a toll on you. So I would say from 10 to 14 years, I feel like they would pertain to maybe to 14 years and beyond. But the main aspect of it is that a prisoner going through long-term imprisonment should be brought, you could say, a whole, you could say, I wouldn't say transcript, but a document pertaining the whole well-being of that prisoner, as in occupying in the prison condition, pertaining to his body condition, whether he's sick or he's not sick. As we could see, one of the things that we look at, even with the international case with voice cartel, people talking about the health of voice cartel will show you that someone's bodily health could affect the person's time being in imprisonment, knowing that a lot of people get misconstrued when it comes to being in prison, feeling that, well, uh, an imprisonment should accompany some other form of punishment. But we, the more intelligent minds and the persons who really understand what's going on, knowing that it's more like your freedom being taken away. For anyone knowing that from time you're going to prison today here, and you got to be instantly taken away from your wife, from your child, from your father, you must feel some form of punishment. And that is the main aspect of the punishment. To accompany this punishment with any other indulgence for persons might get in the mind, you don't know how people might think at time, is not really legal, is not really civic minded. You understand?
So
So
basically, your freedom would have been taken away,
your freedom,
but not your rights.
not your rights.
Because we have rights as human beings, first of all. We have rights as based on the Constitution of the Federation. And we could take it further, we have human rights.
Yes.
So as much as persons feel, well, you are incarcerated, they could take away your freedom, but they cannot interfere with your rights.
That's how it is internationally.
And the passage here would have said that if someone is incarcerated, after the fourth year of incarceration, and every 4 years after that, the superintendent supposed to put a submission to the minister, whoever the minister is of national security, for consideration, so that that person could be evaluated and see if any discount could be given to that individual or whether a full-fledged release can be given. And you spoke about some of the conditions that they would have to look at: the industry, the discipline, the health of the individual. Because remember, when somebody is incarcerated, sentenced to prison, they are placed there for safe keeping. And safekeeping would mean below your shoulders and above your shoulders. So your bodily condition must be kept in a healthy state. And your mind must also be kept in a healthy state of mind. Some people wouldn't understand that they have some persons on the road who might be mentally impacted. And as a result of that, they commit some crime as a result of the mental ailment. But there are some persons who go to prison with good mental condition and develop mental issues whilst incarcerated. You agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you could develop mental issues whilst incarcerated for
Be-
many reasons.
because even though we're going to agitate for long term for prisoners, even for certain kinds that we might feel like are appalling to our society, we go take in consideration the effects of long term imprisonment on a human being, especially his mental frame. As in that, remember when you're in prison, most of the things is like they're actually telling you what to do. So you're actually from being in prison to release, you're actually like going from thinking like 5 thoughts per day to thinking like 5 thoughts per minute. So it's like a dramatic change. It might be dramatic change. It might be, you might look at it as simple, but it's something that actually take a toll on the brain. And it's something you have a term that we call being institutionalized. After a time being in prison for a long time, you have a toll on your psyche, in the sense that when it comes to like how you dress, the time you get up, how you answer to persons, you end up actually start to depict where you was for the last 10 or 15 years. And it causes a barrier when it comes to you, as in reintegrated into society. That's why you see you have certain places like Germany and different places, they adapt a kind of different method in which they put rehabilitation in the heart of the justice system. That when it comes to like we offenders, as in persons who go in prisons and come back out, you find out it's something like it's like a code in them. So they actually have to do it over and over again because of the long term imprisonment that what they spend is like they don't take it on as like they just code. So you got certain spot now that before a prisoner go back into society, they even have like a kind of halfway period where like long term prisoners with a long term short term, you got certain prisoners in which now they have an environment which like depict more like society itself. So
Halfway
from
house,
not
like
not
a
just not just
half
not just halfway house, but they have a system in place in which they give them more freedom. So because remember they got to
you're
reintegrate
preparing
back into
them, you're getting
society.
them
So if we
acclimatized.
check those kind of environment, even the prison officers will tell you that they're preparing good neighbors because they show you that whoever in the prison at the moment, whether long term or short term, one thing they have in common is one day they're going to be somebody's neighbor. So they actually putting that rehabilitation into play so that when they go back out into society, they could be a part of the productive part in a society. That's why we're talking about like reducing time. And I'm gonna be real frank with you that I believe in the reducing time, but I believe that you have to accompany rehabilitation along in the system that when we actually we reduce in time because these guys show some form of sign that they're willing to come back into society.
Yes, I agree with you.
Okay.
And that is where rehabilitation is proven when somebody is reintegrated. However, the good psychologists and philosophers would have indicated that the best chance of giving somebody to successfully prove themselves as being rehabilitated is to have them go into the environment even before they are released. Even before they are released. And there's a habit of the behavior sort of paternalistic, with a paternalistic attitude. In other words, they dictate to you. what they want you to do. You might have persons going up the garden. The person might have absolutely no interest in becoming a farmer, but because of the paternalistic system, you have to go where they ask you to go. You might have somebody who wants to be a mechanic. You can learn about cars and other stuff in a garden, on a farm. So therefore, you must be placed in the area where you can learn. You can learn. You should ask of people, or you should establish what is the strength of this individual. Okay, he look like he will be a good carpenter. So you combine with whoever you got, whatever building you have going on, and you could ask if you could have a few. But they have a lot of government buildings, and we know that a lot of guys would have contributed tremendously and would have saved government a lot of money. The major building that you have up the camp, for example, Lala and Philip, they did a lot of work on that.
Yes.
Right now, a gym is going down at the camp, and the mastermind behind it is who? Warrington Philip. So he's getting practice. You must put people in the areas where they have strengths and you just build on it and get them prepared because they have to come back out and make a living. They have to come back out and make a living. And you cannot cause them to become burdened down with a trade that they do not want to carry on when they are released. So the onus is on the system to be more flexible, more flexible. And when you are incarcerated, basically you become the owner of the state. And a lot of people would have to understand this. So even if you were to get an appendicitis and you have to go for an operation, the prison superintendent is the one who would sign that form to say it's okay, you can operate on him. It's not his family members. They only go to family members because there is a cost associated with it. And sometimes they ask the family members if they can contribute something towards that cause. You said earlier that many persons would have gotten deteriorated eyesight because the lighting in the cells they are very low intensity. And sometimes you might want to read something and you have to strain your eyes. You have to strain your eyes because if lights goes off at 10 o'clock, but you're preparing for exams or something, you might have to find a spot where the light from the moon is shining and you try your best to see if you can make out the words them. And persons would have had to do that over an extended period of time, even though in recent times they would have improved on those conditions. It is very easy for your eyes because the contrast too. Lights off. Come on morning time, 5 o'clock, bright lights on. And you cannot waste time. You have to hustle to go to devotions. Right? Some people try to resist that. And through the avenue that they don't want to have devotion with people of different denomination. So what they did, they indicated that you got to go for roll call. So they take away the devotion part, so you cannot resist not wanting to congregate or worship with persons of different denominations. So they call it roll call. But in effect, it is still devotion because you have to sing what they got to sing and do what you got to do. But it's just a way of masking it so you can complain because that's a right that they have not to have devotion with people of different religious beliefs. You got it that much, right?
Yes.
Right. And that is where some issues could come about. And we're hoping that the system would allow certain things to happen. Another problem the inmates could encounter is that you might be on your bed, you might have a double decker, and you're on your bed upstairs, or even on the one underneath, and they come and tell you, get ready for devotion. And you just come up from your position, your horizontal position, and try to stand upright as quickly as possible. That could interfere with the distribution of blood to your brain or down to your lower extremities, and persons would have fell down already.
Yeah, I actually witnessed that one time.
Yeah, you witness that.
Yes.
Let's talk to it.
The other time, I believe we were coming on to the Christmas, and he had one prisoner. We were in the cell 13, and a guy, I can't remember his right name. I don't remember his right name. What school name right name?
School?
Yeah.
School is somewhere.
Mac Knight.
Mac Knight?
Yeah.
Just say school.
Yeah.
That's
And I
all right.
remember, and the other time we were in 13, and when the officers came in the cell, and he was roll call, remember we have to get up and show some form of respect abruptly. And when he did it immediately, he just collapsed one time. He had to go to the hospital.
But they might have had an incident where someone fell and hit his head too, and maybe may have deceased as a result of that.
Okay.
But certain things will not reach the public domain. So that is a practice that they are to stop. You have to come around in reasonable time and give people a chance to get themselves together. You can't rush from a horizontal position and stand upright.
That's true.
Even when you're in your bed and you get up at 4 in the morning or some late hours in the night trying to go to the bathroom, when you swivel your way to the edge of the bed, you should really think there for a few about 2 minutes. You don't just get up and rush unless you could end up falling down and hitting your head and those sort of stuff. And if nobody in the house with you, it could be even more dangerous. What are other aspects that those guys would like us to discuss? Because we have to be their voice. We have an ombudsman, yes. Things not really horrible, but there are some persons who are trying to get attention in certain areas.
My basic when it comes to discussion is all about giving these guys in prison a chance. 'Cause as I always say, is that these guys are part of society. They are part of St. Kitts and Nevis as a federation. At the end, even though someone might make a mistake, it's not our job to just dismiss someone or marginalize them from what society itself. But as I said, the court's job is when it comes to someone doing a crime, they give them a sentence, they give them uh, a judgment, punishment pertaining towards rehabilitation, towards how his or her, as in the judge position, feel like that person will take to come back to society. It's not a denouncing period, it's not a condemning period, but it's a period accepting that this is a human being who came in the earth, as I always say, that these persons, when they were babies, we love, we kiss, we hug them, and then when we bring them in the world and we show them what the world have to offer, then when we show them what we have for them, we decide we're gonna call them criminals. We can't call them criminals. We can't look down on them. Even if someone make a mistake, it's our job as society to show that form of love. That's why you see certain places like Germany, differently from like America, we might have like 77% of like reoffenders, and these persons will implement a kind of more kind of forgiving and a kind of reaching kind of method towards persons who do crime, whether it's petty crime or whether it's serious crime, to murder. They show them that form of love, that form of forgiveness, that form of acceptance. So at the end of the day, when these guys come back in society, they don't come back in society as monsters. Every every prison should accompany some form of rehabilitation. And that's why we on the radio station right now agitating that persons that are in prison for a certain period of time, a long period of time, should be eligible to have some form of review period, which is going to be a package of the whole being, whether mentally, whether physically, when they come with the whole rehabilitation period, the mind frame, how they think about from the beginning to the end, so that persons who assess, who know that they didn't condemn these guys, but they just gave them a period in which they could come and we integrate back. Because as we always say, there's no resource no country could have as great as a human resource. So we ain't condemning nobody, no care what crime they do. A prison is a very important part of a society because nobody is perfect. We must have persons who might falter now and again. But when persons falter, we have to have a system in place to bring them back. Not to condemn, but to bring them back. So when persons in St. Kitts and Nevis, I'm not going to tell no lie, and everybody could admit to it, we are not too forgiving. And we got to accept the reality and the international world that when it comes to a prison sentence, is not for you to go and think that, okay, he did this and he did that, so we're going to put him in there, we're not going to feed him, we're not going to give him this, we're not going to give him that. No, man, you're violating the person's human rights. You cannot do that. As we say, just the restriction of freedom is enough punishment for any human being. Because love, we all have persons that we love. And you do a crime and they take you from the person that you love, the environment that you love, you're going to feel somewhat detached, and that's going to affect you. But for you to go in and decide that the person in prison, you're going to make sure they sleep on a wet bed every night, you're going to make sure, give them a diet that is not nourishing. No, you cannot be doing these things. You
Because
understand?
you're placed there for safekeeping.
Just for
And I mean from
safekeeping.
every single angle around the 360 circle.
Okay.
Just the liberty of freedom. The taking away of that liberty, you just cannot. Safekeeping is a key phase. You are placed there for safekeeping. I always believe that if a judge sentences somebody to 9 years imprisonment, it will come down to 6 years because he take out the remission, the
Yes,
one
sir.
third. So it comes down to 6. I don't believe the spirit of the law. Let us talk about the spirit of the law. Is for somebody to spend 6 years in jail who was given 6 years. My belief is that you're going to spend half of that retribution. And the other 3 is to see how well you would rehabilitate before you're placed back into society. Now, we get 12 of us get 6 years. For example, the first 3 must spend. Anyhow, you're quicker than me. Your industry better than mine. You rehabilitated faster than I did. So I'm saying within another year and a half, you should be able to be released. If you're already rehabilitated, why keep you for the full 6 years? People would rehabilitate at different rates. If you finish doing that, because you don't spend the 3, the foundation 3, the next one you show improvement, and the next half you show that you're ready to go. You should be going. Not saying by your time you got to be 6 years and you got to spend 6 years. I know it might be slow, disgusting, create problems for people, and you walk out by now here ready to be reintegrated into normal society. So we got to keep him an extra 2 years. Mind the sentence is 6, eh? Came down to 6. But you gone a year and a half after, so you only spend 4.5 years. Where somebody else might have to spend either the full 6 years, or maybe 4.5, 5. I believe every time a stipulated time is given to somebody upon reaching the prison and the remission time is taken out, the prison system would have failed if that person has to spend the entire period of time. Because you're supposed to be working on those individuals. And if you're supposed to be there for 6 years, and even after 5, you're not ready to go, it's not that just say 6 years, so you're going to spend 6 years. Because the system used to be failing. The rehabilitation effort used to be clumsy at best. So therefore, people must spend the full time. But if you have a good rehabilitation system and people start to improve and get rehabilitated and everything, there's no reason why any inmate should spend the full stipulated time unless the prison system is failing. What are your views on that?
Well, I back you up 100%, in the sense that, as you say, and as I fully believe that when a judge give you a sentence, that's not a sentence, as I said, to end off your life, but it's just a sentence that he feel like gonna take you to reintegrate back into society and become a part of the more productive part of your environment. So even if they give you like 30 years and you go back, say like appeal, and you could show the judge that even though you thought it might have taken me 30 years because of the aggravating circumstances of the crime, I come to prove to you that I actually reformed in 15 years, in 16 years. So I'm ready to go. I don't need the full 30. I understand what you're telling me. I know exactly what I did wrong, and I know my crimes towards society. I feel it deep in my heart, and I feel like confidently I gonna be a better part in a society when I eventually go and reintegrate.
And you would have expressed remorse.
Yes, sir.
That is at the nucleus of the whole consideration. Has this individual expressed remorse since incarceration? And if that can be shown, why keep the inmate for the extended period of time?
And Mr. Newrish, we got to look at the reality of the matter that when we go fight to keep a person in prison for such a long period of time, we actually put in a burden and we economic
Mm-hmm.
aspect of society, because you cannot just put a person in prison, as I say, and not feed them. You have to clothe them. Sometimes you have to give them even slippers to put on, joggers to put on. So you got to take care of them. So imagine that you have someone in prison, and instead of being forgiving, you want to say that you're mean and you want to keep the person in prison for such a long period of time. When you look now, instead of the person now coming out and being more a part of the productive part of society, as in paying the rent, paying the dues, and paying the taxes, they have to stay in prison where you have to feed them early morning, 6 o'clock. Sometimes some of us not even eat breakfast, and these guys must eat breakfast. So when you feel like you're hurting them, you ain't hurting a soul. You understand? Something we just better that we be more forgiving. Because when we were there, you have to make sure they get breakfast. You gotta make sure they get lunch. You gotta make sure they get dinner. And as I say, these are the most important resource of we society, which is the human resource. They're supposed to also contributing just like me and you. And that could make us stronger Sankis and Nevis when these guys mind are reformed. That's why we got to put rehabilitation at the realm of the justice system to curve and these reoffenders, to curve and these senseless crimes that we're witnessing in Sankis and Nevis. Sometimes when you see we're gonna go and we're gonna blame these guys all the time, all the time, all the time, more high thinkers, more persons in different environment all over the world. They don't realize that this whole idea of being tough on crime don't work. We see Nixon, we see Clinton, we see all of these American presidents talk about they're gonna lock up the merchants of crime, they're gonna do this, they're gonna do that. And they just, you could say, portray this image to give an impression towards the public. But the more constructive persons don't see that to be tough on crime and the attitude that you're going to fight and fight and fight, it not work. We got to rehabilitate these minds.
So the
We got
emphasis would have to shift from punishment to rehabilitation.
rehabilitation and acceptance.
Right. I'm in total agreement with that because some people look down on others who might have been incarcerated before. They look down on them even more and they scorn them and they just decide, well, let he go where he going because he would have recidivated. Recidivated. I believe when ex-convicts come back into society and recidivate, it is an indictment on the rehabilitation system. Because if that person was properly rehabilitated, went through the appropriate transformation, metamorphosis, is nowhere he would easily recidivate. Recidivism came from the system failing the individuals who were incarcerated. I don't care how anybody else want to look at it. I believe whenever a person recidivates, the system got to take 90% of that. Because if they had done what they're supposed to do, it would not have led to, okay, even if somebody received it, let us suppose you went to prison for stabbing up somebody, chopping up somebody with a machete, and you spent your 8 years, whatever, and you came out and you got in an altercation again. And this time, instead of chopping, stabbing, you give the person a hard slap, knock out the person, whatever. You call that harm reduction. You understand? You call that harm reduction. So even though the person might have recidivated, you have to say, yes, he did. But look at the reduction in the harm he caused to society.
Yeah, back up 100%.
You got to look at the harm. You're not that you're encouraging people to continue to commit crime, but you must have a comparative analysis to be made with each inmate. If you go, if you go to prison for X, and you go back for X, and you go back for X, apart from you failing yourself, the system is also failing the individual. But if you go for X first time and then X minus 3, X minus 14, X minus 20, harm reduction.
I read you 100%. And Mr. Nital, even if we go take in consideration, one of the big, you could say, project what the government had the other day, which was the gun amnesty.
Yes.
To me, if rehabilitation was more focused instead of this military campaign, it would have been more productive. If we more focused on acceptance, if we were more focused on setting up systems in place in the prison system, even in the schools, because I believe in prevention, and if we can't prevent it, we could go to a cure. Because these guys, at the premature stage in the schools, I always believe like we could have more stable programs. I will go and recommend programs like the program where the office or name again
Elevate
elevate
program,
with the school itself.
or Explorers,
Explorers come.
and the Magic program as well.
Okay. And I will go when I gonna do that, I gonna comment persons like Mr. Percival. I was in prison and I saw the impact what programs like Operation Future had on persons, especially persons that were in prison for long term and were doing time for serious crime. And I see the kind of toll that this program had on these guys. I was a part of one of the program led by Operation Future. I believe he was, the guy was name again, by Dan.
Yeah, Don.
Dan McMillan.
something
Dan
like that.
McMillan.
Mm-hmm.
Operation Future, Dan McMillan. We had classes with anger management. That's when I learned that anger is more or less neutral. You need a bad or good. And I learned about using anger in an assertive way. Because remember, anger is one of the things that propel a lot of these things are going on right now. So these kind of programs led by these kind of guys. And that's why I say certain programs in our federation, I feel like it should be led by persons who have a genuine ambition. Persons like Percival, persons like Newrish Nital. Newrish Nital attack from experience. Because Newrish Nital gonna bring persons like me, persons like Remy Gums, persons like Vincent Foy,
Glenroy Smith when he comes
Glenroy Smith,
Antoine Adams,
Antoine Thompson, persons
Lil Bob.
you can't question the integrity. So he man not directly what he talk about when it comes to rehabilitation and changing the mind, and not just go with this military concept, just pushing. It's about accepting too. We got to be a more part of a forgiving nation. We say we are part of a Christian nation. Well, Christianity, I thought Saul used to kill off God people them, and then he end up convert, and the same Christ of your praise end up name him. I give him a chance where he could convert unto Paul and where he could go and preach the gospel. So if these guys in prison, irrespective of our crime these guys do, and they decide that they were wrong and they want to come back to society, why we as society can't accept them as a people, where we can put things in place to help to bring back our people that might have strayed from the road that the Lord has prepared in front of them. We want them back. We ain't gonna condemn them. We need them because, as I was always told, and as I always believe, is that sometimes the more productive part of society are these guys who lock behind in prison. They only stray. It take brains to do criminal activities. It's some real smart guys that once you actually could convert the intentions, they could actually propel us further than we even expect.
We want to address that question here. You can't the question read it there for me.
How you how you address repeat offenders and victims and their families.
Let us look at this because you see, it's a very good question. When someone commits a crime and the judge sentences that person to 15 years, 20 years, you have, when you commit a crime, you commit a crime against society, yeah? And that is why you see the state versus Peter Paul. It's not like a civil matter. It's not Peter versus Paul. That's a civil matter. But when you commit a crime, it's the society versus you, or the chief of police versus you. Now, when a person gets a sentence of 15 years, whoever the crime was perpetrated against, whoever directly was impacted by the criminal act, that person is a victim. And you could also look at the indirect victims. Because if you did something to that individual and the one that you impacted was the breadwinner, and for some reason he cannot go on to continue winning bread to that volume, then those are victims. But you have to look at it too. The person who committed the crime, that person has a family as well. If he was the breadwinner for his family and he get incarcerated for 15 years, his dependents then would have to do without his support for 15 years. So you have victim on the victim side, and you also have victims on the perpetrator side. However, we as a society, we look at it one way. We look at the persons who were impacted from the victim's perspective. They have something they call victimology, where that is why when somebody commits a crime, you have the social workers. They go to the court and they give a social inquiry report. They also ask persons of the victims to come and give a statement, express their concern, how it would have impact, victim impact statement, they call them. And it is based on those victim impact statement that the sentence would be influenced by. Because if you did something and you're not only impacted Peter, but you impacted about 40 different persons, that sentence would go up proportionately to the number of persons you impacted. So that is why they got victim impact statement when they got the sentencing phase. But I think that the government though, they could establish a fund where persons, I mean some persons might not like hear this, but if if you want to give somebody 10 years in prison, where 10 years, you ain't got to sentence them to 15 because it's 2/3 they would spend. And you said to them, look, we could have you incarcerated for 10 years, or we would work out a proportion. 5 years is equivalent to $30,000, so to speak. And you say, well, arrange for the victims to get $30,000 and 5 years will come off of your sentence. Because sometimes you commit a crime and you go and you spend the years in jail. Nobody benefiting. Yes, your freedom is restricted, but the victims are left behind. If society could establish a fund that when things like that happen, and let us suppose a man of straw did it. In other words, he doesn't have it to pay into whatever fund it is. The government could find out, do their interviews, and we got to stop interrogating and interview people. When you interview people, you massage the information out of them, but when you interrogate them, you bully them, and you do not get as much information as you may need to help you go forward. And you do an analysis and you work out, well, this person cannot come up with that. So therefore, we have a fund there. We're going to give the victims a little $5,000 to offset whatever the impact would have caused a void in their financial standing. So you give a little $5,000. And you could say to the perpetrator, look, you're supposed to get 10 years. We're going to give you 5. You'll have to sign some documents to indicate that upon release, you would contribute to that fund a certain amount per, per month, per year. But you don't have to wait for that. You have persons working like hell while they're incarcerated. This young guy, Tulu, the Tulu correct name is why. Tulu, he works at the camp. He showed me some gates that he would have designed and put together. The fellow into metal work, really master it. And he doesn't get a penny for that skill he would have exhibited and maybe did something that others could not have done before. And I think people like that, despite the incarceration, should be given an allowance. And this is where I think that the Elevate program as well could take into consideration the skilled fellows them who are incarcerated. Because once you could give them a little change, a little allowance, it might not be the full 400 a week like this SEP program, the Elevate program is giving, but even like a 125 or 150, it would add up. And the fellows then would feel more driven to increase the industry. They would learn because they realize that you have certain tiers. You're a skilled person, you got 3 stripe, 2 stripe, you're private, and you'll be rewarded accordingly. So they are forced to learn the trade. Yes, you might have somebody teaching them, but people could also learn trade and so by osmosis, by
Sure.
simply being around. And once they learn that, they could offset a lot of things to the government because when they come out, they don't have to depend on the government to find jobs. And if the government doesn't give them job, then they go back to the same old ways because then it boils down to a matter of survival. You have to try to accommodate them even before they reach back into society.
That's
You can't
true.
send somebody into society with nothing.
Yeah, that's
I
true.
listen to Sparrow song about the slave and they set them free, but they didn't prepare them for the freedom. So they had to steal from the white men. I listened to that song about several times so did they.
I remember Mr. Newrish that when you have someone in prison for a long period of time, these persons you might end up get displaced in the sense that you might get a little room and then based on your sister or certain persons in the household, they might end up get children. So when you don't spend 15 years in the little room you used to spend your little time in it don't occupy. So as Nuish was saying, like certain programs that lending assistance to persons. And if we really understand what causing this whole offending, then you should lend some form of assistance. I feel like St. Kitts and Nevis should get in the habit of halfway homes because at the end of the day, some guys are in a prison so long that when they come out, they actually don't have nowhere to go. As Nowish saying that he feel like certain persons should benefit even from the Elevate program because certain persons are not getting stipends a week time. But if you understand the whole aspect of rehabilitation and the fact that these guys will spend long periods of time in prison and still come out and don't even have a dime, don't have nothing but more than what they might have in a plastic bag, some clothes what they wear for a couple of years or whatever, because the mother might have done pass away who don't support them with this amount of time. So this support is needed. And as the question was saying, how you address and repeat offenders and victims, when it comes to repeat offenders, I will always say that we as a system is to actually failing these guys. And unless we could put rehabilitation at the center of the justice system, we're going to continue failing these guys. And as I said on other programs, when I went into prison, there was no form of rehabilitation. It took persons like Newrish Nital, persons like Blues, and other persons who had certain skills who decided to do some form of self rehabilitating and spread it towards the inmates them because they saw that it could actually benefit them. But it wasn't nothing done on a governmental scale, and that's why I'm saying that as a system, as a people, as a government, we got to make rehabilitation more a part of the system. Because as the question say, when it comes to rehabilitation, when it comes to repeat offenders, when it comes to victims, imagine someone going to jail because they did a crime to you, a serious crime to your family. They came out, they gone back again. They come out, they gone back again. That can't be no benefit to you. Because when they did the crime, okay, they might only get a 5 years or 10 years. You notice they do the 10 years. They get the 10 years, they end up do 8 or 6. They come out, they gone back for the same thing again. You as a victim ain't gonna feel good. So as I saying, once we ain't put in rehabilitation, once we ain't be forgiving, once we ain't accept these guys back into society, we're gonna be failing these guys over and over again. When it comes to repeat offenders, when it comes to the victims and their families, unless we could change these guys. These guys are human beings. These guys are lovable. They are adorable just how they born. Just like me and everybody else. We got to stop focus on too much difference and focus on too much hatred and go and fuel too much hatred in our environment. We don't suffering too long from these decades being plagued by these sheet violence and these things, gang wars. We're too smart for these things. You understand? So we got to take back with children them. These guys feel more comfortable in our gang than how they feel at home. So you can't just blame them, blame them, blame them. We as a society got to bring them back, make them feel comfortable. Don't just screw up your face and don't just want them out to work side. Don't just deny them from every opportunity of going forward. Denial, revoking these guys and everything we're not gonna be conducive for these guys to come back into to society, gonna be adding to the fuel, gonna be adding to the violence, gonna be adding to the war, and it's gonna be adding towards we being a non-productive state and we getting the most valuable resource being non-utilized. You understand? These guys, as we say, these guys are very intelligent. These guys' minds and these guys' actions, the energy, the money what they could have been paid to social security, the money what they could have been paid for tax and all kind of different things, it needed out here. Because it's a togetherness effort is what gonna carry us forward as a people.
You know what I'm very disappointed in? These laws, these prison laws, the Prison Act, these things were up long, 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 long time. When white people meant to create the harshest of conditions for black people who would have entered prison. And we have our own. We are now the black masters. And we have not done much to improve the Prison Act. There's a part there in the Prison Act that said that if you're releasing an inmate upon the end of his time and he has no clothing, you, the prison superintendent, you are supposed to furnish that individual with clothing. But guess what? Guess the nonsensical aspect of it. The spending on the clothes must not come up to more than $10. Man, you can't even use $10 to tell somebody hello. You understand? That is why I said that these laws are outdated.
They just need adjust because you remember
$10?
$10 used to
Yeah.
be a lot of money. So when the laws them were actually put into play, $10 was a lot then, but $10 now can't work. So it just needs a little adjustment and it needs society itself, it needs persons who actually in place to make a betterment to actually understand and accept the situation. That you can't just go and be this all 100% military with these guys and feel like you're gonna get a result that you're looking for. You understand? We got to actually accept, we got to actually understand what is actually the source of the problem and try to attack it and just accept these guys still.
I I feel if this mindset continues, the rate at which we expect improvement would be retarded considerably because we are creating a culture of we versus them or them versus us. We don't need that polarization.
No.
We need to get away from that. We don't want to meet anybody and put our hands around the shoulder and talk to them. That is talking down. We need to walk beside them and have a conversation. There are many ways that these guys would interpret the way you communicate with them. And that is why we cannot reach places if we do not level the playing field or the communication field. It cannot be reverses them. You cannot be paternalistic. You cannot be dictating to people. You have to see how much you can get cooperation. And the single gun that was collected, it is a sort of subtle.
The single gun.
Well, let's say one gun was collected during the amnesty. I don't know if it is true, but if and only if, IFF in mathematics, we say if and only if and only if that was the case, it is an indictment of the system not being conducive to facilitate cooperation.
That's true.
If you see yourself that we ain't begging no criminal to do nothing, if they ain't do this, we'll shoot them down, we lock them up. That mindset got to go.
That's our.
Cannot take it right. It is reverses them. And the problem is that there are many guns on the streets. Many guns on the streets. Some our trained officers here don't even have in the army. So we have to be more accommodating. We're looking for cooperation. We're not looking to create stratification between the so-called good ones and the bad ones, because you have some good ones there that do a lot of nonsense. And instead of you taking them to the criminal court, you always take them to the civil court, talk about white collar crime. And when the poor man commits a crime, you carry them to the criminal court. And many white collar crimes should have gone to the criminal court. But we cannot continue doing that. You want to tell me Shusha might have taken up a tin of sardine, a piece of bread. You carry Shusha to the prison. We see the vision so many times. And despite his health wasn't of the best. I mean, look at him now. The strong, healthy guy. He would have come around. But when you have the white collar criminals committing crimes to the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, compare that to a tin of sardine and a dollar bread and maybe a Vitamar from out somebody's fridge. I mean, what the cost of that? Less than $10. But then he recidivated because his rap sheet. Yeah, guys would have rap sheet. Guys would have rap sheet. Some guys don't have any rap sheet, but they're worse criminals than those who got rap sheet. And we cannot look at everybody who would have been sentenced to prison as a criminal.
No.
Remember, we have people driving, and you might have had an accident, and they were charged for manslaughter because somebody was killed in the process, but it was not their intention to do that. So you cannot charge a person for murder. So when you have somebody who driving a vehicle and accidentally, maybe you call it reckless driving, whatever, and they are sentenced to prison, do you look at that person the same way you look at somebody who might have cut off somebody's hand or some? All of them are incarcerated. So if you just throw a big blanket over all inmates and decide that this is where we're going to treat all of them, that is ridiculous. That means that you're not understanding what you should be doing to get the best out of society.
That's true.
We have to be mindful of that. We have people over there, women. You have people over there for child support. You have people over there for indebtedness. But they're still housed the same place. So what you do, you treat everybody like criminals. We too loosely engage that word criminal. Like I tell somebody, I teach accounts. You could bring a lot of accounting problem to me and I help you with them. But I am not an accountant. I didn't go to university to study accounts. So if you in primary school, you did balance a chemical equation, 6 water plus 6 carbon dioxide to give C6H12O6 plus 6 oxygen, you become a chemist because you balance one chemical equation. But if you're not a chemist, how could you describe people as criminals or for a particular incident? You might have been part of a few persons when a crime was committed, back on to the law, they might have you jointly charged. You might not have been the principal perpetrator, but you're going to jail with the principal perpetrator. They can't call you a killer when it wasn't you who killed the person. Whoever did the killing is the killer. We understand? So we have to be mindful and we have to be a little bit guarded against uttering unbridled words. We have to be careful because that is where the segregation would start.
That's
That
true.
is where the them versus us gonna start. You don't describe people like that. Some persons get an opportunity to do some studies, and people who out here working, family got a lot of money. They envy the inmates and who would have gotten an opportunity to do a little degree. How can you do that? They're not getting paid. Well, a penny a day, a halfpenny a day, whatever it is. You'll have to spend 5 or 10 lifetime in prison before you could come out with $20. So we must be happy for people. We must stop put down red tape when we are trying to get people reintegrated into society and put on the damn red carpet. You might walk out that they don't deserve any red carpet, but you're thinking about it literally. I'm talking about making the environment conducive for these people to reintegrate. Because inmates go through some real shock. They go through some trauma. Remy comes a very good friend of mine, where some people say is my son. And Remy came out of prison after spending 10 years. Remy called me, I think it was the first week of him being out here. He said, Teach, Optimum Pedagogue, but I got something to tell you. I said, what happened? He said, boy, you wouldn't believe. A fire egg this morning, boy. Remy, very happy that he was able to fry an egg. You could imagine that? And he said, guess what? He said, boy, I had to call the madam for she to tell me how to operate this stove. You know, them gas stove are kind of burn on this. You might lock on this one and try to light the next one. And then the gas come up, blow up in his face. You might lock on the oven when it's a stove he meant. And people don't understand. People go through, they get disconnected with technological and electronic advancement that taking place outside. They have to go and catch up on all of that. Why would you still want to pressure them into getting a reasonable red carpet to walk on? Stop, put up the red tape and better facilitate the people. You cannot tell a man who just come out of prison. I don't say they ain't gang. So how you gonna ask them to bring somebody to guarantee a loan for them? Birds of a feather flock together. So it's almost like a physical impossibility that A was in prison and you ask A to bring somebody to sign off on a loan, co-sign on a loan for them. How that gonna happen? So if the loan is 6%, and what happens if you give them an interest-free loan? Give them some venture capital. Let them start up something. It's equity. And equity is such that you do not give everybody equal stuff. You give them a level playing field. And having given them the level playing field, you have to accommodate the movement, the engagement. You can't give me an acre of land and give somebody else a millionaire acre of land. And then the millionaire will take off because he has what it takes to do whatever he has to do. Me know I ain't got anything, but I got a piece of acre of land. What am I going to do with it? I'm saying that you give the millionaire the acre of land, but you give the poor man who was incarcerated not only the acre of land, but you give him equipment to work the land. You provide him with a guaranteed labor source to help him. Unless that's not equity. Equity means you get equal opportunity to advance. Somebody might need $10, another one might need $1,000. And by doing both from a comparative basis, you would have provided equity. And the thing is, it out here, so, but they say we must come to equity with clean hands. We know many persons whose hands are not that clean, but they're coming and they're asking for the fair share. They're asking for everything. You must come to equity with clean hands. We have to start treating people better than that. The emphasis must be repositioned to facilitate rehabilitation more so than punishment. You don't got you said the years them set out to punish, that is okay. Nobody no and the guys when they do wrong, they know they do wrong, they accept the punishment. But over punishing somebody cannot cut the cake. You cannot over punish somebody. It's like you're thirsty, you get the first cup of water, you relish it. The second, you relish it less. The third, you relish it less. Until maybe at a point when you get a next cup of water, it tastes like Epsom salt. Because there's no need now for your thirst to be quenched. You cannot over punish people. And you cannot feel like the harsher the penalty, you'll get more people to cooperate and stay away from that. And again, what we have to do is when somebody gets into trouble, okay, they get convicted at the court, you send them up to the prison. You should be interviewing, you should have quality expertise to interview the person. Peter, what caused you to do this? Were there any alternatives? And you get the whole story. You make some notes and you realize, boy, this is happening. It happened to Peter and it could well be happening to another 15, 20 persons. 15, 20 persons. So if we understand what happening to Peter and we could take action to get it nip in the bud before the other 14, 15 would reach the same eventuality as Peter, maybe we could get things under control incrementally. Incrementally, but you have to understand why persons are doing stuff. Taking them to court and getting a successful conviction. That can't help us. That is only one step. You now have to interview them. Our police depending too much on interrogating people the American style. We need to come down to the British version of interviewing people. Stop interrogate and interview people. Stop trying to get a conviction at any cost. A country can't reach nowhere like that. A country cannot reach anywhere like that. So if you have exculpatory information or evidence, that too must be given to the DPP office when you're making up your file and getting it vetted. All sort of evidence should be given. And the funny thing about it, I don't know, but we have police prosecutors, and I really don't believe in that. I don't believe in police prosecuting nobody, whether at the magistrate court or at the high. Well, magistrate court is where those things say. But I don't believe that. Because police doing the investigation. Police putting the file together. Police gonna send them down to the DPP office. The police gonna do the prosecuting. I mean, you're gonna want to make your fellow police officers look good. You're gonna want to make them look good. So you surgically construct the file to ensure that you get a conviction at all costs because it is your fellow co-worker. And I believe that should be removed from the system. Somebody might say we don't have sufficient lawyers working in the Solicitor General office or the DPP's office. So we're going to need some police to assist in that. But I believe that is something that we should done with. Police should always make an effort to get a feather in the cap. And to get a feather in the cap, they would have to support the fellow police officers. It would not work. I have witnessed on the court where a particular police prosecutor was doing a matter and she had to withdraw herself because she was part of the investigation. So you had people working on the court as prosecutors but still being sent out to do normal policing duty. So there was a conflict and she had to remove herself and ask another officer to do the prosecution. I mean, that is short-sightedness. All that should have done being in the system. That once you're part of the prosecution team done by the DPP's office, then you would not continue to do normal policing where the probability is reasonably high that you could witness something and be a part of the overall case itself, that you still prosecute. No, we got to get that right. We have another section here. Um, I think is section. Let us take a break and come back, please.
Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear No Favor. Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to sugarcityfmsankits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store. And join Newrish Nital every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. as Newrish Nital tackles the issues and take your call. Fear No Favor every Thursday night from 8 to 10 p.m. on Sugar City 90.3 FM. Fellow citizens, near and far, join Newrish Nital on Sugar Soda 90.3 for Fear No Favor. Tune in to 90.3 on your FM dial. Log on to sugarcityfmsankits.com or download Simple Radio app from the Google Play Store.
Welcome back to Frank and Candid with my special guest. Yeah, sorry. Welcome back to Fear No Favor. You have to forgive me because I would have been the initiator of the program in ZIZ, Frank and Candid, and now I'm doing Fear No Favor. So at times you have a little slippage. It is not intentional, but it is an inherent part of me that these programs, many, even on Win FM, I had programs already, so at times they are used interchangeably, same sum and substance, but I apologize for Frank and Candid mentioning just now rather than Fear No Favor. Now, Section 40 of the Prison Act. Section 40. Prisoners eligible for licenses. The superintendent of prisons shall transmit to the minister the names and descriptions of such prisoners as are eligible for discharge under the rules hereinafter provided for remission of sentences, and also of every prisoner under a life sentence who has served 15 years of his or her sentence, or having served 10 years, has attained or is believed to have attained the age of 60. That's saying believe because sometimes you cannot find the correct record to indicate the when somebody was actually born. So that is why they're saying has attained or is believed to have attained the age of 60. So it is saying that once you spend 15 years or having served 10 years, right, you are eligible for some kind of consideration to be released. The age of 60 has attained or is believed to have attained the age of 60. So we have three things occurring there. We have 15 years spent out of the long sentence already. We have 10 years, 10 years upon, and you reach the age of 60.
So, to how I understand it is like
Mhm.
once you get a lifetime and you don't spend 15 years in prison, you get the information passed on to the minister, and
The
if you
superintendent,
the superintendent pass on
the
the
minister.
information to the minister, and if even if you ain't spend 15 years and you don't serve 10 years and you reach upon the age of 60,
right.
the information we pass on as so. So based on what I see in here from reading the Prison Act from the first acts that we read, the and this 140, to me just showing me that the whole idea of it is that not to condemn someone, but with system design that whoever the minister is supposed to get some form of accountability, some form of record, the persons that we have in prison to see if they reach a period where he could actually go and we integrate them back. Because if we really look at it, we know that it is a burden on the system. We have to feed these guys. We have to clothe these guys. And as Newrish Nital said, that even upon these guys being released and they ain't have no clothing, you still have to provide it to them. So the system designed in our way that we do not condemn these guys, but we punish them for the crime that they have done, and we make available all all terms, all alternatives, all methods that these guys could actually reform from their ways and be a part of the productive part of society and respect the norms and the act to some form of civic code. So that is what I actually understand from this. It's not more or less a condemn. Because even I was speaking to a guy today and he was telling me that, oh, from time somebody come out, from time somebody go jail, they're not supposed to be comfortable. They're supposed to be miserable. You're supposed to make sure, but even wet up the bed and make sure that they don't want to go back. So the whole mind frame that we've been fed as a people is not to forgiving and is not to welcoming towards we eradicating these kind of behaviors that ain't conducive towards with society, as in the gang violence, as in all these different things that erode in the whole principle of our society. So I saying that all we got to do is try to embed rehabilitation, embed forgiveness, embed some form of acceptance in the judicial system. And knowing that these persons that we are condemning, unless we're going to find a way that we could just go and just chop off the head and train them in some kind of corner, like whether some kind of bush they be, which we know we're not going to accept. We got to accept bringing them back into society, otherwise they're going to be with problem. If we're gonna go and just lock them in prison and left them with the bad ways and act and accept that they're gonna come back out with the bad ways, what do you think we're gonna do? Even as Newrish Nital said, ain't everyone in prison do hard crimes. They got certain persons in prison. They did certain things that you wanna call them as like you classify them as misdemeanors, not no way you could say they ain't killing nobody, they no went go rob nobody with no gun or whatever. They just maybe ain't penetrate support or they ain't do certain things and they got to end up in the same environment. So if we don't have persons in the environment, we have these kind of a bad attitude towards them and concept and way of life. And then you're going to send in persons with lesser crimes to go and interact and mingle with these guys. You're actually creating a breeding ground that, well, someone who ain't so deep in criminal activities could go spend a month with these guys. Then when you come out, they got bomb strap on them and they got gonna go rob Chinese and they go do all kind of thing. But if you got an environment, we're going to more promote some farmer a reform, some farmer a civic attitude, some farmer a way of life, we're going to be beneficial towards society itself. They're going to be one, they're going to be more pushing forward, me and you being a better part in a society. That's all I'm saying. We need reform, we need rehabilitation, we need to accept these guys. Even Kemba Swanston, the great Kemba Swanston, if you go and look on the internet and you look up King Jammers and you see the extraordinary performance of King Jammers,
With the badness in the music.
badness in the music, I cannot say, okay, even though I know it's still upon us to go and make a good decision and walk a path where you're going to be more productive and not be antisocial and disrupting the whole code of society. I know it's all upon us. But at the end of the day, we as a system, as a showing you, we fail these guys. We know that, okay, this guy, Kemba Swanson, was someone who was in prison. Maybe he did get lifetime. And then after going through and exhausting, he appeals them. I want to make sure I get it right. He was eventually, because as I heard that where 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 justice and mostly begins, something like that. As in the sense that once you exhaust all the appeals, like if you come in guilty in the High Court, in the Appeal Court, and in Privy Council, we justice system still set up a way that you could be pardoned. And was he pardoned? I want to know how he actually get out later.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Okay, so you're gonna pardon him. Pardon him is more or less similar towards the whole reducing the time that we're thinking about. So I saying whether pardon, whether reducing the time, it's still up to the system to have you could say wings, facilities in place, programs in place to help these guys along in the pathway to being to being converted back into society. Okay, he might have a drug problem. You understand? Persons got these kind of problem. So you don't accept that as a people. So you're gonna reduce a man's sentence. To me, you're gonna pardon a man. To me, I feel like you should have a system in place, somewhat like a power system in which you have persons, so officers who actually checking up on these guys. Let them bring the piss test. Let them show that they ain't using the drugs. Be a part of them. Be a part of the reintegrating. Be a big brother to them. Don't just left them unguided. They're gonna fall. Because remember, for the time, for the 14, for the 20 years that these guys were in prison, you were making all the decision for them. You institutionalize them. You got certain prison, certain persons, if you do the statistics. Even when you open the doors, persons inside, as in long-term prisoners, work out, they ain't gonna move because they work out none. They come from the farmer society there. As Newrish Nital said, the guy said that he had to, where me say, he had to let his girlfriend help him out with lighting a stove. Imagine somebody who in there for 30 years. When I was in prison, I saw persons in there who I born 83 and persons in jail since 81, 82, and me done 30 plus years. So me frightened, because I want to know what these guys are could know. Because me feel like me know so much. And these guys are in prison all before me born. So he must got some form of transition period within the integration period so that it could be successful for these guys to actually come back.
I,
And that what we want.
I think that the system could be a little more sensitive to guys who would have been sentenced to prison. You could recall I did a presentation in there on clinical psychology. You have persons who are traumatized and terribly in need of therapy. I did a whole presentation because it was supposed to be recorded and sent off for my doctoral studies. It went down well. Sometime I think I would have showed it here a few times. You mentioned Kemba. A lot of people don't understand. Kemba was in the US with his parents, I understand, and his mother got killed, whether by boyfriend, husband, somebody in the family. And he was sent down on the same plane that brought down his mother's body. So that is traumatic for somebody at that age. You see, if we put people in prison and treat them as nobody, that is where society would experience shock and awe. Because when you think that you have taken away their freedom, and as a result of that, they would never, ever return to doing what they did to go to prison. That is only the bodily aspect. You need to walk above their shoulders. And Kemba wasn't given a chance. He wasn't offered therapy. Traumatized young man was never offered therapy. But of course, the system provided him with an early release. But did they prepare him for that release? And where is Kemba now? Unfortunately, Kemba was buried last week or 2 weeks ago.
He passed.
Yeah, he passed.
And to me, I always saying that as I say, even though you have your own personal responsibility, I feel like the system failed Kemba and many other persons. As Newrish Nital saying, that you released him, but did you prepare him for this release? For someone who you actually institutionalized, someone who was actually in prison for such a long period of time. If Raymond Gums could have experienced that, what about Kemba Swanson at a young age? And as Newrish Nital will show you that he even experienced certain trauma, as in the losing of the parents and even the journey back home. These things impact persons, the whole mental well being.
I remember he was locked down upstairs
Okay.
in isolation for many
For many
years.
years.
Many years. And it was a special appeal to the ombudsman, I think in that time was Mr. Gomes. A special appeal that went out to him for Kemba to be rescued. Kemba used to just come downstairs for a half an hour, but he was up there in condemned cell for years. Even when he was taken off of, he was initially sentenced to death, was it? But he was
A
locked
very
down for a
life
very long
sentence.
time.
Yes.
The extent to which he was locked down, he had to be taken to the hospital and placed on gyps.
No was occasion.
And I think the first time he went, he was so dehydrated and malnourished that it took about 6 bags. And a bag is about a liter, 100 cm cube, to really spunks him back up. And he did come around. Matter of fact, Kemba did several subjects well. I think Kemba might have ended up with about 13 subjects, a combination of CSEC and CAPE. I'm not absolutely certain, but I know that he was in the double figures with respect to subjects. So that was good raw material for you to work on. You can't decide somebody to fag on. Nobody gonna be fag on and getting those kind of results in CSEC exam. And then he went off to his music and he put down a splendid performance when he won that crown. I could remember because I was amongst the judges them. Socrates was one of the judges that we had. And a matter of fact, I was looking at him performing. I keep on replaying and replaying and replaying that video. He put the badness in the music. He changed his life.
So
He wanted family to be proud of him.
to me, the mere fact that he wasn't killed by no gunshot and certain other circumstances, to me, if our system had a program set in place that these guys, so you're going to reduce time or even pardon, that before they come back in society, you make a transition period. And along with the transition period, you have persons involved who could go and facilitate this transition period, as in to make sure that these guys ain't addicted to no drugs, make sure these guys actually being a productive part in a society, looking towards getting employment and not mingling, as you could say, with too much bad company. You understand? Because these guys were in there for a long time. They were in there for certain reason. So to just leave them alone, to just take them from you institutionalizing them, from them making 5 decisions from for a whole day to 5 decisions every minute, that's a dramatic change. So this change here to me could have facilitated some from a big brother accompanying them, as in the system, putting persons in place to accompany these guys, to check up on these guys. And just like how we be in the prison, when they're in the prison, as they show you the superintendent responsibility, after 4 years and every 4 years after, they go and they present this package, as in the whole presentation of these guys and to the minister, whether the bodily well-being, the mental well-being, the whole aspect of rehabilitation. Let the minister know these things. And to me, even when you let them out, this should continue, that you should actually know. Let it bring some form of drug test, let it bring this, bring that. That to me, if you have these things in place and he had somebody behind a Kemba Swanston, I could have been able to see Kemba Swanston tomorrow, and Kemba Swanston would have been in on the road of being the person who I know, the shining light that I know, the great Kemba Swanston be. And a lot of persons, as Newrish Nital say, ain't just about the singing, the whole academical aspect of this guy is very inspiring, and that's just a light just gone. That's one of the human resource that we know is the most valuable asset gone. So that's one of the asset done gone. How much more we gonna let go?
You mentioned that the author put something in place to prevent him or keeping track of him to ensure that he did not go in so to speak, bad company, quote unquote. I I have a sort of outlook on that. Even if he was to go into company that might not have been the most conducive for his future development, he could have been someone to dissuade others from being in that sort of company. So it is not like protecting him from the bad company, but exposing him so that he can use the experience and teach others and prevent them from traveling that broad path, get them back on the straight and now.
That's
And
if he was effectively rehabilitated, then he could have communicate the form of
that could have
rehabilitation.
been part of his rehabilitation as well. Because if you give, is that you have a class and you have a talkative student and you say to him, by Paul, I'm stepping out for 20 minutes, you're in charge of the class. Write down the names of those who talk. You think Paul gonna talk? Paul know everybody looking at him. Paul know he talkative. So what Paul gonna do, he can keep himself quiet. And you do that to Paul about 3, 4 times. And Paul become diluted with respect to his talkative
You
nature.
remember this skit with King Jammers?
Yeah.
When he
You ain't gonna look a job.
when he went to look a job and he ain't get the job.
Yes.
And then after he ain't get the job, he went and he said someone in the street and the person tell him by come make some quick money.
Yes.
And then the next
Trying to
person-
get him back into the badness. And then somebody cut in and said, but Kemba don't study them.
So for instance, Kemba Swanson come out of prison. How many persons approach him? What was the approach from the government side?
But that is what I'm saying. If something was put in place, he could have been used just like how you got Wycliffe, you got Antoine, you got Hadnock. You too. I took you all to radio stations, took you all to schools, made good deliveries, and look at what happened to them. Look at the product. Look at you. Look at Vincent.
You still here?
Right. And teaching. People came into the prison to be educated. I don't know if you're there when we had a debate looking at the benefits and the disadvantages of tourism. Those debates would have to come back. A matter of fact, we had sent out a challenge to the people at Ross University to come and have a discussion, whatever topic they want. Those are things that you have to promote because we have people incarcerated who can make meaningful contribution to the national debate.
The debates and the same activity as in with King Jammers. Remember when we were in there? Just the idea of having those kind of activity that used to bring a farmer excitement to the prison environment, the football
The
and the
little mini
basketball.
festival, yes.
Man, that was nice. That's something that I wonder if that actually happening still.
No, it doesn't happen. And I think that they even were trying to push it twice a year. But then not even once is happening now. You see, something you have to embrace people who could get things done, regardless of their affiliation, regardless of your perception of them. Because you see this group of persons, that a special group, Not any and anybody could communicate with those guys
Yes.
because they have verbal and they have non-verbal. So you have to be able to understand that hybrid. And if you don't understand the hybridization of communication with them, it doesn't make sense to like going to one ear and coming to the next. You understand? You have to fully understand. And this militant approach, if anybody have that mindset, they would have to dilute that to insignificance because it's not going to work like that. And you can't say, well, you want to look no friend with no criminal and you want to treat them as criminal. We hunt them down, we shoot them down, we do lock them up. Let us say what they do. If they want to try, they do what they got to do, and we got to do what we got to do. That is what certain mindset a law enforcement and defense force people would have. But that's not the correct approach. Unless we're going to create a them versus us society, and we don't want that. We do not. We want to slowly reduce the persons who have that kind of mindset that they don't want to be on the straight and narrow, and you could win a few. Even if you win one per month, that's a lot. Even if you win one every three, that's a lot. You just have to be consistent, persistent, and supportive, and it will happen. You can't say you want to dismantle the gangs. It doesn't work like that. A gang is like a family unit.
And as I show you with the whole amnesty period what they had, watch the results that they reap, the practicality of the whole period in a sense that you actually want to go and disarm these guys who will not into criminal, only say criminal activities, but they're into things with other persons. They have a reason, you could say, whether legal or illegal, to have a gun. Because persons after their life. We in saying this, we know people that die. Whether they die for, me and you don't be there, but we know we witnessing that. We loved ones them and persons we know being due to gun violence. So at the end of the day, if you can't find a way to go and bring back these guys, it's gonna be a problem. You want them to go and disarm the guns them, and then you aim farm no farm a situation around them to protect them. You aim farm no farm a rehabilitation. Nobody mind I get rehabilitated, nobody I get reform. But you expect them to just go and pull on the guns and then they're in harm's way. You not even say that you provide an environment that they could feel safe and secure. So we got to put rehabilitation at the realm. We got to put a change, a mind frame at the realm.
You got to be at the nucleus and not at the periphery.
Okay, at the
Got to be at the
nucleus.
center of things. We have a WhatsApp. You could give us 10 more minutes, please. We started a bit late. You won't job still. We'll make certain of that. Civil society feels if you maintain form of friendship with someone who would have served time, you should be condemned. You understand? That is the perception, that is the mindset of some people.
Hard and quiet.
Then tell me, how would these people survive? If you're telling them, you who never been to prison, don't associate with them, what you doing? Logically, what you doing? You ain't keeping the same set of people together.
Yep.
You're building a concentration of them together. So they got to work out their survival skills. So it's going to be even worse for the society. And speaking of that, I want to bring something to the public's attention. Vincent Foy, he was the head teacher and he taught at various high schools, Evening, people went to the prison. He was one of the few teachers. Well, of course, I know students and teachers in the outer world, wherever, created a bond of marriage. Now, Vincent Foy and this prison officer, they fell in love with each other. And when he came, she had great admiration for him while he was incarcerated and the way he taught the classes and the way he was like a disciplinarian and structuring things. And upon his release, they got married. And you know that some of her co-workers were calling people to put it in social media and asking them to put pressure on the government to dismiss the prison officer from her job. You could imagine that? So you want to tell people who to love? They fell in love. They now have a baby. The guy is a very intelligent man. And some of them officers who were trying to discourage her and try to put pressure on the government, claiming that they should dismiss her. They don't have 1/10 the intelligence of Vincent Foy to capture the young lady's heart. And he did that. Admiration. A propensity to be with somebody who's academically inclined, pleasant. And you got a problem with that? Approaching social media personnel to tell them, put it on social media. We want her to lose her job. She shouldn't get married to anybody who was an inmate. Well, I don't know how this world would be. I really don't. And I'm very disappointed in those officers who would have trumped up those other activities because two persons fell in love. They're happily married, happily married. And I don't know why people could be so vicious, man.
Remember, Newrish, remember, I have my own share in that too because I was once a prisoner too, and upon coming out of prison, I ended up going to teach for the Ministry of Education. And I had my own experience that even though I went and I had such a toll on the students, them as in a positive way, when they went home and they communicated the whole change with the parents, them some was welcoming and some was still of the system view that well, the other time a student came back to me and told me that, teacher, grandma say you kill a man and you went to jail and you're a murderer. And I have no form of conviction against me.
You
Me
said
no
if
form of conviction, but because I went in the prison environment, because persons would have fabricated evidence against me and still ain't man enough to come and say that they fabricated evidence against me. The other time one of them come Newrish and he asked me for forgiveness. I said, forgiveness? I said, boy, me no mind forgive you, but you got people out there still believe that me kill people. You say you're a pastor, go tell them that me not kill nobody and then I could forgive you.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it is that even the person who came back to you, the child, who came back and said, grandmother said, her mama said that you're a criminal, you went jail, you kill a man. That's an easy lawsuit. And people don't understand they can't be uttering things like that. You can't be uttering things like that. I know you would have told me about certain examples, and people got to be careful when they want to label people a certain way. There are potential lawsuits that can be made of those utterances. And some people would have to pay for them out when they want to subject people to public ridicule and defame their character. Can't even say defame, but assassinate people's characters. So they still have to be mindful you have a right. And some of those media, they have something called the right to be forgotten. You go on some of them local media, they had up your incident from the time it started, going on and on and on, giving update. But from the time you were exonerated, you haven't seen anything to say where Shahid Williams was exonerated from this incident that stemmed from 6, 10 years ago. You have you in international law, in law, you have the right to be forgotten. And people would have taken certain media to court because when people go and they Google your name and they're still seeing the incident, but no follow up to say, well, this thing came to an end and the person was exonerated. You have a right to be exonerated, and these local media got to be very careful because if you go on any one of them and you see something about you that ought to be corrected and they did not, you can take them to court. The right to be forgotten. You understand? So you got to stop let people get away, giving their tongue liberty to do what they want and say what they want about people.
And one my hardship in this way, Newrish Nital, is that when I was on the wave one time with Cynthia and we were explaining the whole situation, I made the public domain understand. I tried to communicate to them that this is not just a personal matter for Shahid Williams against the state, that it is a matter of the constitutional rights and we're actually fighting for the freedom. From since my incident, you have other persons that were arrested. The young guy from Old Wood, who they make everybody feel like was involved in some kind of murder for the guy from St. Paul's. They still had to go and exonerate him. Say they're not gonna farm evidence. And the public attitude towards these guys here is still that they killed somebody. And they know that they don't have no evidence on the guy. So if my incident and other persons' incident would have a positive effect on the government, they would have gone now and go and you could say school the police officers them and show them the proper way to do things and make sure they do it in a scrupulous instead of unscrupulous way and go and try to refrain and try to go and rearrange the whole matter instead of going and cover up for guys who could have go and fabricate evidence from people for whatever farm or reason. You're gonna just go and back them up and you know they're wrong. We live in St. Kitts Nevis. We know what happened in 2010, 2012 when the sheriff with the feather in the hat was here. We know he used to lock up people, children innocently. We know that he must have an effect on the economy. We know all these things. So when he come now, where you gonna go and try to put a block in people justice? You're blocking the whole rehabilitation, you're blocking the whole reform, you're contributing to crime instead of going and pacify or eradicate and bring some form of peace. You ain't helping nothing. Once you ain't accepting the fact that the persons them that you imply went and did something wrong, and you cover up for them and they did something wrong. The whole world saying it's not they did something wrong. We know they went wrong and they didn't have no solution for the crime. And they used to just go and lock up people just so. One lot of people it happened to. So what you still trying to find a problem? Instead you solve the solution. Then the guy in the last Christmas who you lock up for the guy down the St. Paul's, you won't have got to exonerate him. The other persons, you won't have got to exonerate him. A lot of persons coming to me from the hear me and the radio with Sensei and they telling me, boy, the same thing happened to me. I understand what you're saying, you want fight. But then we go fight to show. Them man violate with rights. Cause you can't understand this.
Because even if you went to trial and you were exonerated, found not guilty, 2 out of every 10 petitions would still see you down the road and point out to somebody. See the fella there who killed the person. That's 20%, you know. That means out of every 100, that's 20. 200, that's 40. 300, that's 60. So you could see the amount could come up. Even though you were exonerated, you still got to go through that mental cruelty of people labeling you a particular way with no resolve. And that's why people must be properly compensated whenever the name is placed in a position like that and they cannot get the forgiveness. But you can forgive, but you can't forget. But like I tell you, you got other people who would feel, well, he did it. I don't care what the court say. Look, Trump. Trump was found guilty. How much people saying he ain't guilty? He running for president. But in our little country, we're trying to put together the bits and pieces. Nobody wants to forgive anybody. Well, we have come to the end of our session, and I really know we could go on for another 10 hours, but we say thank you. We started a bit late because you had to find your way here. You had an unfortunate situation where you were trying to come and things happened and you had to change plans and had to come out and meet you to direct you specifically to where the station is. So we are happy that you came, and I want to use this public forum to wish you well in the pending case you have, the compensation case with the government, where you had a judgment of over 700 and something $1,000, and you're slowly but surely putting your fight because the judgment was a judgment. And if the government would have appealed and the appeal quantum, then some kind of negotiation can take place, and we're hoping that it can be well negotiated so the matter could be expedited and come to a halt as quickly as possible. I want to wish you well in your quest to get the compensation as dictated by the judgment from the court. Okay?
Yes, yes.
Okay, thanks much.
The opinions and statements made by the host and participants in this program are not those of the owners, advertisers, and management company of Sugar City FM 90.3, nor are such statements necessarily supported or endorsed by the owners, managers, or advertisers of this station. While we encourage all to share their opinions, we do not support any comments that may slander, discriminate, or otherwise